might not realize that as the space station becomes decommissioned at the end of this decade, the one that's going up is going to have ties right here to Ohio State University.
Yeah. First, thanks for having me. And second, it's an exciting time in space. For not only for the United States and for the world, but also right here in Central Ohio, we're playing a major role in the future of the space economy and what will happen after the space station is retired.
Although Starlab is being developed, so that's actually the name of the next space station that's going up. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes and also research that's happening currently at Ohio State University when it comes to building the Vista Science Park.
Yeah, space is, when you get to space, it's super exciting, but there's a huge amount of work that goes on the ground, in many cases for years before you ever get a single flight. And what we're doing right now is all of that groundwork and that preparation, some of it literal groundwork and ground preparation, to get ready for the era beyond the life of the International Space Station, when we're doing research and exploration in space aboard privately owned and commercially operated space stations.
So why Ohio State? Why did Voyager Technologies and all these companies say, we want to get Ohio State involved?
Well, of course, I think it's because academically we're the same level of powerhouse as we are in college football and in women's hockey and in these other areas. We have excellence at scale. We are an amazing research powerhouse. We're an extraordinarily large public land-grant university, and we deserve to be there. We helped Voyager write the proposal to NASA to get this started. And that proposal was selected because of the excellence, not only of Ohio State, but all of the partners in that proposal.
Space is really exciting to you and I, but let's be real. Some people are like, okay, space station, why is this important? There's so many things happening here on Earth, but I think what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of the work we're doing in space that we have been doing on the space station has been potentially life-saving information and benefiting us here on Earth.
Yeah, space is really an important part of modern life. And if you were to take away space for a day, you wouldn't recognize the world that we live in. So, for example, you know, if you find your way to the store using GPS, right? Not only are you using a satellite network, you're also a commercial consumer of general relativity because you need to make Einstein-like corrections into the signal so that you can find your way. When I use a credit card, the timing signal for when that transaction occurs and also to prevent fraud comes from satellites.
Interesting.
Maybe people are listening or watching this media activity over a satellite network. It's just a huge part of the world we live in. And I tell the story like, well, why do we spend all this time on research and on space? And it's because it fortifies the future. Several hundred years ago, there was a man named Johannes Kepler, right? And he was staring up into the sky and he was figuring out these laws and planets. You know, the planets execute in ellipses and that the period squared is proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis. And I can imagine what I'll call regular folks going, what are you doing? We're trying not to get the plague.
Sure.
And yet at the same time, it's this path of discovery upon which he embarked that governs how every satellite flies. And so we use it today just as a raw material, even though, you know, several hundred years ago, it was exotic research.
Right. And that's so exciting. I mean, we hear they're trying to cure cancer. They're trying to find ways to extinguish fires in space. I mean, it's mind-blowing, the research that's going on there. But what's also going on is by bringing the Vista Science Park to Ohio State University, we are looking at boosting the economy. We are looking at getting more students excited to want to come here to Columbus and want to stay in Columbus.
Yeah, exactly right. And so if you're going to build a research platform in space, the entire ecosystem on the ground also needs to be immersed in research. You can't just sort of layer it on later and expect the same kinds of outcomes. So in working that very first proposal to NASA with Voyager and with the team, we said, look, this is going to be a space station where research plays a huge part in the business model, and therefore we need to instantiate it in a research context, almost like, you know, tofu tastes like what you cook it with.
Yeah.
And so we're going to cook this space station in a research environment. And to do that, you immerse it in the context of Ohio State and the ability of universities to bind together. Very few universities act by themselves. We're in partnership with Northwestern and that place up north even, and Tennessee and North Carolina State, right? And North Carolina A&T. And we build collaborations in the university ecosystem to fortify social and economic and educational and quality of life outcomes. And so we're going to do that for Starlab. with the Vista Science Park on the ground, and not only for Starlab, but for all of the research platforms in low Earth orbit that will come. This is sort of going to be the back office. It's going to be where, if the show is going on in space, this is where you're going to sew the costumes, where you're going to build the sets, where you're going to do your rehearsals, so that when you get to space, you're ready to go and you're ready to do that work.
So kind of like a mission control will be right here.
That's a possibility. Voyager needs to decide, and there's some decisions to be made about where mission control is going to go, where payload operations are going to go, where astronaut training is going to go. But regardless of those specific decisions, the work that's going to go on here in Ohio at the Vista Science Park and at associated science parks around the world will be that fortification for the research to be done.
I know we're wrapping things up shortly, but what are some of the cool things your students are doing behind the scenes already, even though the space station has not been launched?
Yeah, so we're getting ready to fly, right? And we have done the very first ever laser welding. You think how exotic is that? It turns out welding is pretty important if you're an astronaut. The first ever laser welds in 0G and vacuum.
Wow.
Because if you're going to live and work in space, you're going to need to repair things, you're going to need to build things. And so perhaps laser welding is a great way for us to repair and construct new things. I have other students that are working at the intersection of agriculture and spaceflight. Spaceflight turns out to be a really interesting gymnasium for plants to stress them and figure out how they grow. Cassidy Brozovic is a graduate student. And
I met Cassidy. She's fantastic.
She's working on designer substrates for plant growth. And this is directly applicable also to indoor agriculture here on the ground, where, if you're a carrot or if you're spinach or if you're a cayenne pepper, your roots want different structures because the plants are all different.
Right.
Just trying to figure out how that works, what plants like, how I can 3D print those in space, maybe put the fertilizer in there as well. And then when the plant's grown, you chop it all up and throw it back in the 3D printer to create a more sustainable cycle. That's just two examples of amazing stuff going on.
I can't wait to hear more of them that are coming out. But just so you know, there's a lot of amazing things going on at Ohio State. I mean, yes, we've got the sports, but we also have the STEM and we also have the space.
Yeah, exactly right. I say astronomy and astrophysics, space science, nursing, equal to the stature of our football team, of our women's hockey team. And so we are academically excellent, and we are also athletically excellent, of course.